YouTube, it's the battle of the kings of smartphones. It's the iPhone 17 Pro Max versus the Galaxy S25 Ultra. In this style of smartphone, this category of traditional, metal and glass sandwich slab, large devices, these are the two to pick out of. Now, let's break it all down from a spec perspective, but most of all, and the most important, a user experience perspective, and hopefully this video helps you pick which king to go with. Now, the Galaxy S25 Ultra is a beautiful black titanium built masterpiece. This thing is phenomenal. A lot of cameras, a lot of features when you get into this device. But all in all, I was from the camera test. You guys are going to see that in just a second. This design this year with the flat edge, the rounded corners, it just equaled a more palmable large device. And the weight on this thing is really good. We will be getting into the specs and comparison between these two, and you guys are going to see that this is lighter than the 17 Pro Max and does a lot of things that the 17 Pro Max can do and does things that the 17 Pro Max cannot do. Now, if we take a close look at the S25 Ultra, had it since launch day, as you guys can see, rocked it mostly caseless. I may have went back and forth in between like an aramid fiber style case, but this has held up from a durability standpoint extremely well. As you guys can see, this thing looks phenomenal. And honestly, from a visual perspective, if we're looking in between these two, you guys let me know which one you think looks better as we move into the iPhone 17 Pro Max's design. This is the new aluminum unibody, which is mostly metal. It's shrinking the glass on the rear from all complete glass backing to just this portion right here for the wireless charging and so on. But the aluminum body allows for better temps this year, which equals better performance. And you guys are going to probably be shocked when you look at the performance figures in between these two when we get into platform and performance on that discussion. But aluminum body, anodized with the colors. They have that, unscratchable, quote unquote, glass on the back and the front, the ceramic, as well as you have this new plateau, which is housing all of the hardware, which allows for a larger battery this year. So from a design perspective, these two both are very well built, very much premium. And let's just break down the specs really quick. So on the 17 Pro Max, we have a height of 163.4 millimeters with a width of 78 millimeters with a thickness of 8.8 millimeters. Now, if we go into the S25 Ultra, we have a height of 162.8 millimeters. We have a width of 77.6 millimeters and a thickness of 82 millimeters. So if we look at the thickness, listen, the iPhone is thicker. The iPhone is taller, slightly, and the iPhone is heavier. Let's talk about weight. Now, the S25 Ultra is a beautiful 218 grams, and the 17 Pro Max is a hefty 233 grams in comparison, respectively. So both of these bad boys are still big. They're still the massive offerings, and they're still the biggest and baddest smartphones in their category. Now, as far as weight goes, either or I can deal with. Like, they both are very well balanced in their weight distribution. So although the 17 Pro Max is a heavier device, I could do either one of these interchangeably as far as weight goes. So weight is not a deciding factor between the two, although the S25 Ultra is a lighter package. As far as water resistance, both are IP68. Nothing new there is what we all know, but where things get a little bit interesting is in the screen. Or before we get into the screen, let's talk about the anti-reflective property. The iPhone added a slightly anti-reflective coating this year. It's not as good as the S25 Ultra, as you guys can see, but it's better than what it was from before. Neither here nor there. You can use both of these devices in direct sunlight or in bright situations extremely well. Now, when it comes to screen specs, as far as displays and what we have here, they're both OLED or AMOLED, shall we say. We have LTPO. Both of these can do variable refresh rates from the lowest hertz all the way up to 120 hertz. And then you have a peak brightness of 3000 nits on the 17 Pro Max versus the peak brightness of 2600 nits on the S25 Ultra. So the peak that you're able to reach on the 17 Pro Max outnits slightly the S25 Ultra. And this is how it breaks down from a pixel perspective. The 17 Pro Max has a 6.9 inch LTPO Super Retina 1320 by 2868 pixels. And this is a 19 by 5 by 9 ratio and it has a 460 ppi. Now, when we get into the S25 Ultra, we all should know by now that Samsung does the OLED panel, the AMOLED panel, the best. They have a 6.9 inch LTPO Super AMOLED. This is a 1440 by 3120 pixels, exact same aspect ratio as the iPhone, but a 498 ppi density. So this is more pixel dense than the iPhone, effectively yielding a more pixel rich image in comparison. Now, if we put both of these side by side and we look at some high quality HDR video, you guys let me know, I'll have it on the screen. Can you tell the difference? I feel like both of these are extremely great screens for color accuracy and just media consumption. They both look amazing. So again, there's not one over the other, although technically Samsung has a better panel. So we'll just leave it there, up for interpretation or up for your preference. Now let's talk about platform, and then we'll get into performance. Now, the Apple is rocking the iOS 26, that liquid glass little overlay or UI that they have now. The Apple A19 Pro 3nm chip, which is phenomenal as usual, hexa-core with the Apple GPU. Now, the S25 Ultra over here, we're rocking the Android 15 platform with One UI 8. We just upgraded to One UI 8 recently over the last few months. And then we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite, another 3nm processor. This is octa-core though, and the Adreno 830 GPU. Now, the interesting thing around platform and performance is two tiers. There's the Android preference or the iOS preference to be considered in between these two, but there's also just the raw performance, which I'm gonna give you a breakdown really quick. So I could put performance numbers up on the screen as far as like Geekbench and Antutu scores and so forth. And the GPU on the S25 Ultra typically always, you know, at least in the last recent years, has edged out the iPhone by a small margin. But when it comes to core performance and things like that, the iPhone etches out the S25 Ultra. So they trade blows on performance, but what matters most is the user experience. And in using both of these devices, I never felt like one was more powerful than the other or more performance based. But technically, here's something that's realistic this year. The iPhone is handling heat better than the S25 Ultra, which means before it thermal throttles, the S25 Ultra is going to thermal throttle or bring down performance due to heat well before the 17 Pro Max. So that's a difference this year, which is a big part as to why the iPhone, performance-wise, if you see people do scores and rankings, the 17 Pro Max is going to have a more sustained high performance over time than the S25 Ultra. So you could take that information and do with it what you will. I don't think that performance or like those numbers really guarantee like which one you pick over the other, although the heat dissipation and the heat management allows the 17 Pro Max to etch out the S25 Ultra overall and all around performance, except for in GPU performance. As I told you, year over year, Samsung typically does that. All right, really quick, let's talk about cameras, because a lot of people take that into a huge account in between devices as to how they choose their device, because a lot of people take a lot of photos. Now, you know, from a technical aspect, we got different rankings and specs. Like we have 48 megapixel across the board on each one of these lenses on the iPhone, whether it's the wide, the ultra wide, or the telephoto. Well, the story's a little bit different on the Samsung, as we have the 200 megapixel wide. This is a f1.7, along with the 50 megapixel telephoto and a 50 megapixel ultra wide. So Apple finally upped themselves closer to that with 48 megapixels all around. No, there's no 200 megapixel. If that matters to you just on specs alone, the S25 Ultra has technically a better wide angle zoom or better megapixel count. Let's just put it that way. Now, I will say this, in camera performance, you do get 8K video recording versus just only up to 4K on the Apple. I think you do 4K 120, but you just cannot match that 8K resolution, which I'm actually shocked due to all of this, you know, new heat unibody and whatnot. You would think that they would compete in that realm. Both of these devices have log video recordings and so forth, but instead of me just talking about, you know, the technical specs on these cameras, I like to get out and use them. The last thing I'm gonna say is that the selfie camera on the 17 Pro Max is the 18 megapixel ultra wide. This is a really cool selfie camera this year, as you can go into vertical or horizontal video shooting without needing to turn your device, which is really, really cool. And it's a very convenient feature that the S25 Ultra does not have, but it does have a 12 megapixel wide angle on its selfie camera. So we're gonna look at all of these cameras head to head really quick. Front facing cameras, 4K 60 on both of these devices in their log shooting mode. So, hey, this year, like I said, man, the playing field is super level. We have the S25 Ultra right here, and then we have the 17 Pro Max over here. The big boys, baby. Which one is king, man? Let's get to these rear cameras and let's test it out. All right, rear facing camera on both of these in log video shooting modes. We got 8K 30 on the S25 Ultra because we could do 8K, and then we got 4K 60 on the 17 Pro Max because that's the max. Which one is looking better? Leave your bias at the door. All right, so this is a challenging shot as I cannot see myself, but that's how we shoot when we shoot with these rear cameras and we aim them at ourselves. These are the best cameras, which are the wide angle camera lenses from both of these in log mode. Now we do have 8K 30 coming out of the S25 Ultra because that's the max, and then there's 4K 60 coming out of the 17 Pro Max because that's its max, but they're both in log video recording modes. I also have ND filters and glow mist filters on both of these just to offer the best quality possible for this setting. So which one's actually doing it? Leave your bias at the door. All right, so you guys got to see the cameras in real world usage side by side, and you guys can let me know which one's looking better. Honestly, this year more than ever, it's such a neck and neck, and it's going to be more about like your personal eye and what appeals to you more. I like the skin tones on the Galaxy S25 Ultra versus iPhone. Sometimes in certain situations the iPhone can make my skin tones a little bit too orange, but when I'm shooting in those pro log Apple ProRes modes, all of that is eliminated. So when I use log video, which is what I use only exclusively on both of these devices, I get all of my skin tones and colors correct. So there's not a one over the other. Although you are getting raw, and you can do open gate on the iPhone, which separates it from the S25 Ultra, but that's more professional stuff, and those also equal extremely large files. In a practical real world use, which is why I just kept it straight to the normal camera app, no third parties, no pro camera settings or anything like that. Photos, showed you guys a handful of those. Unbiasedly, tell me down in the comment section below, realistically, which one you thought looked better and performed better. Both can transfer data in an extremely fast manner. Both of these devices are pro in themselves. Both smartphones can offer the pro experience, the heavy user experience, the pro gamer experience, or pro mobile gamer. Let me put that in perspective. Both of these devices deliver on all fronts. I don't care which category I spoke about, they all deliver at the top of their category. So the only thing that can separate them is user experience. The next topic is ecosystem, which for years used to separate one from the other, but now it's more closer than it ever has been. AirPods Pro 3, Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, either or, pick yours and enjoy. Your audio sound as well as your active noise cancellation and transparency both are done extremely well. When it comes to the smartwatches, I like the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic with my S25 Ultra, and then I'll do the Apple Watch Ultra on my 17 Pro Max. You could do the regular Apple Watches, you could do the regular Galaxy Watches. Both of these smartwatch experiences are extremely good on both of these devices. When it comes to tablets, there's so many great offerings on both ends. I love the Tab Ultra. I get busy with this big boy right here. Anytime I travel, this is the tablet of choice because look at this beautiful Super AMOLED, screen. This is one of the best screens on any tablet, and I carry this all of the time, especially when traveling. That leads me to just continue to say that ecosystem is neck and neck, baby. Now, there are some things that are a little bit more polished in the Apple ecosystem. I gotta keep it 100,000%, but the majority of what you could do here in this ecosystem, you could typically do here in this ecosystem. And there's some things in this ecosystem that don't exist in this one. So again, this goes back to my point. When it comes to user experience, it's really about your preference, the offerings that one or the other can give you, such as like customization, right? Let's say I unlock these. As you guys can see, my S25 Ultra screen or my home screen and my setup is absolutely different. I gotta give a moment of silence to Nova Launcher, as it's unfortunate that Nova Launcher will no longer be receiving updates. It's over with, you guys, and it breaks my heart, as this was my favorite launcher. I'm gonna have to figure it out another way. A moment of silence for Nova Launcher. But as you guys can see, I use Nova Launcher because I love things like the hidden folders that I could just swipe up on and have those folders. I like the super clean, highly dense, app layout and things like that. But you can't do stuff like that here on the iOS system. As far as customization goes, they've given more than they've ever have in the past, but I still think that there's more to be desired when it comes to customizing your smartphone on the iOS platform. Now, there are other things in software where a lot of programmers program software more geared towards the iOS system because it's an easier programming than it is on Android. So you see certain social media apps favor the iOS platform. Like when iOS 26 launched, you saw a lot of integration into a lot of social media apps instantly day one. Again, it's up for debate and it's up for discussion. I know you guys are gonna get down in the comment sections and throw y'all blows. You got the Samsung Knights, you got the Apple Mafia and the where's my bro floss. And y'all could just duke it out down in the comment section. But realistically, more than ever, it's really about which phone services your needs the most. I'm gonna be honest, if you want a more pro camera experience and you want that ProRes, RAW or open gate and things like that, or if you really trying to shoot and be serious, like shooting like high-end, productions on your camera, that's one of those categories where Apple just took a focus on and they delivered. So the 17 Pro Max is definitely gonna etch out the S25 Ultra, but that doesn't mean you sleep on the S25 Ultra, because we got log and you got some really nice pro camera features inside of the native, Samsung app, which you don't have on Apple. You gotta go use a third party like Blackmagic Camera and things like that. So again, you gotta look at the totality. I will say this, I didn't speak about it yet, and I should have spoke about it up front. I usually do. But let's talk about battery. And that's a huge part of the user experience. And I'm not gonna lie, battery is such an interesting thing this year, with the 17 Pro Max coming in at the largest battery size on the eSIM only model at 5,088 milliamp hours. Now, if you have to do a SIM model, that drops down to 4,823 milliamp hours, but 5,088 milliamp hours on a iPhone 17 Pro Max model is crazy. Obviously, on the S25 Ultra, we've been rocking the 5,000 milliamp hour for years now. So it's nothing new to the Samsung, Knights and so forth. But Apple, even in the years past, having less milliampage, has kept up in battery life due to their optimization and their control with the S Ultra devices of now and the past, and that continues. And this time it's even more of a significant, gap due to them actually having a large battery for the first time ever. So if you want to focus off of battery life alone, the Apple 17 Pro Max is going to give you more battery than the S25 Ultra. But I'll tell you this, as someone who uses both of these devices and has used them over a sustained amount of time, from a user experience perspective, I could take either or for battery. These both are battery kings, so I don't care. Regardless, both of these devices deliver on battery and battery life. That's a huge part of user experience for power users. That's why they choose in between these devices. So then, CJ, what makes a person pick one over the other? Honestly, at this point, it's hard for me to be like, oh, this is the reason why you picked this one over that one. That's why I said up in the front that, man, this year more than ever is just about the device that services you. Period. If you just an Android fanboy and that's all you rock with, you a Samsung Knight and Samsung is all you roll with, you're gonna say S25 Ultra. If you're an Apple fanboy and Apple and iOS is all that you rock with, you're gonna say 17 Pro Max. But if you're one of those people who are out there and you're just more free-spirited and you're willing to jump in between the two, or you live a life like that or whatever, or maybe you're coming from a different, platform and you want to pick in between these two, you really gotta weigh like what one may have over the other that matters most to you. Like I told you, the only thing I see on the iPhone etching out the S25 Ultra is camera, pro camera features and battery life. Also performance over sustained due to heat dissipation. But outside of that, neck and neck. Android S25 Ultra giving you way more customization. You get an S Pen. Now, the reason why I haven't like glazed the S Pen as much is because it's slowly, unfortunately, becoming like more and more less relevant in a degree. And it hurts for me to say that because I'm a Galaxy Note user, but you know, the features are being stripped year after year on the S Pen. The S Pen, honestly, for me, hasn't been a huge usage for me. But that is a factor that the S25 Ultra offers that the 17 Pro Max just can't give you. But yeah, Android experience, customization, crazy features, along with a lot of the Pro, you know, additives that you usually didn't have. All of that stuff in the S25 Ultra. Man, it's more of a slugfest than it's ever been. So for me personally, if I were going to pick just one in between these two, I would go with the 17 Pro Max because I'm more into pro camera features. ProRes, RAW, Open Gate is super appealing to me. Honestly, this year, the Pro Max model is more in use for that type of stuff than ever before in the past. And also, when it comes to the Galaxy world, there's a different device that sits here that would take me away from this one, and that's going to be the next video. Outside of that, my name is CJ. I know tech, so you don't have to. And I know you guys know everything. You're going to tell me everything that I don't know down in the comment section below. So I'll meet you down in the comment section below. Peace.